Stop letting the sun ruin your footage. Go ahead and follow these 3 easy steps to make your footage look cinematic no matter how bright the day is. Tip number 1 is adjusting your frame rate so that you can adjust your shutter speed. Now, if you're going to be shooting on a bright and sunny day, 24 frames a second may be too low for you to have it because it's so bright. So you may want to adjust it to either 30 frames a second or 60 frames a second so that you can bump that up to 1 over 60 or 1 over 125. The reason this matters is because once you know your frame rate, then you're going to understand your shutter speed. And understanding your shutter speed is what's going to give you the proper motion blur. So even on bright and sunny days, you want to make sure to lock in your shutter speed and your frame rate so that you can understand the kind of image that you're going to be getting. All right, so we look right here. You can see how I'm filming. So right now I have it at 30 frames a second, at 1 over 60. 2.8 with an ISO at 640. Now, because I'm shooting an S log, the best way to capture it is at 640. So what I can do now is go on my menu, go here to record setting. And as you can tell, that's the highest that I can go. But if I bump this down to HD, which would be 1080, I can actually go up to 60 or 120. So if we try 60 frames a second, that means I need to bump up to 1 over 125. And as you can see, it's already getting a little bit dimmer, but we're still at a +2 right here, as you can see. So then what I want to do is maybe adjust my ISO, see if that helps any. So the lowest I can go is 500, so that's not going to work. So now the only other way that I can properly adjust this is by adjusting the aperture. So we're at a f2.8. Now I can start bumping this up to start getting a more visible footage. But as you can tell, I have to go all the way to f16 or f18 to get me down to a +1. Which means everything's going to be super, super sharp, which if that's what you're going for, great, you can make it look that way, but that isn't what I want. What we're trying to go for is something that looks clean and cinematic. And F18 is just really, really sharp. I'm not a big fan of something being that sharp. This is where step number 3 comes in, and you can get way better, cleaner footage without having such a high aperture. So let me show you how to do that. So now what we're going to do is bump the aperture all the way back down to 2.8. Now, as you can see, we're back to the issue that we have, which is it's being way too blown out, right? It's way, way too blown out. I can't mess with my ISO anymore. I don't want a sharp image. And I can go up to 120 frames a second and have this at 250, but that doesn't be so much footage for my computer to use that I don't know if I want that. So the next best thing you can do is put on an ND filter. I have to reach into my handy dandy camera bag and take out an ND filter. Now, the one that I like to use is this one right here, which is the K&F variable ND filter, and this has multiple stops on it. So all I need to do is add this to my camera, and it's gonna adjust the footage in such a clean way. So let's go ahead and look at that right now. Take my ND filter right here, add that to the front of the lens like so, just twist that on. And as you can see, that's already made this image so much better. Now we're still at a +2, so all I have to do is turn the ND filter, and now that's going to allow me to keep my same aperture, ISO, shutter speed, and frame rate, but I'm able to get a way cleaner image out of this and still making it look cinematic. Another great tip to capture cinematic footage on sunny days is by shooting in the shadows. One of the things that's going to make your footage come off as very cinematic is your blurry background. So if you're shooting in the sun and you don't have an ND filter, like you saw, you have to bump up that aperture, which is going to create really sharp footage, which doesn't lead to cinematic. But if you're shooting in the shadows, you're able to go all the way down to a 2.8, 1.8, or maybe even a 1.4, which is going to give you that creamy, blurry background. And that's exactly what you want if you're going for the cinematic look. Shooting in the shadows also keeps the sun away from you, so you don't have to worry about squinting or any heavy sweating. Now, the final step in getting cinematic footage on sunny days is the focal length that you're using on your lens. So I'm gonna go ahead and reach into the camera bag and switch out my 16 to 35 for my 135 millimeter 1.8 Rokinon lens. We're gonna go ahead and get this 135. As you can see, it's a nice heavy lens. So we're gonna try to keep it at a 1.8 to get that depth of field. Now, having a telephoto lens like the Rokinon 135 at 1.8 adds that cinematic feel to your videos because it gives you depth of field, compression, but also that bokeh at 1.8 gives you that creamy, smooth, buttery background that you're looking for. You could also use a 50 millimeter lens or an 85 millimeter lens. I just recommend having it at your lowest aperture so you can get that creamy, smooth bokeh. Now that I showed you how I like to film my content, let me show you how I like to edit my content because editing is probably 50, 60, maybe even 75% of how your footage is going to show up at the end. All right, so we're back in my office and I want to show you how I like to color grade my footage in post. Now it's pretty easy. I like to use the conversion look that Sony has, and I'll make sure to link that down below. But that really gives me a base understanding of where I'm coming from with the footage. And this is what it looks like when I have the color assist mode on my Sony a7S III. So when I am filming and I have that on, I know what the footage is going to look like in post. So that's why when we're out filming, we want to nail our settings so that in post, the color grading is much easier. So let's go ahead and jump on Premiere Pro. Now, one of the first things that I always recommend doing is if you're using like glasses for blue light, take them off because it does have like a tint to it. So when you're color grading, you want to make sure that there's nothing obstructing the way that you're going to be color grading that footage. So I like to remove my glasses when I need to. All right, so I'm just going to come right over here and drag my footage over and drop it down here. Now, right here on our project file, you'll see this is the one that I ended up. So, like something like this, you can film this out of your camera. But like I said, what I was doing here was trying to get at least a better looking image for me. So I was bumping up the ISO a little bit, but then what I was doing was blowing out the back. So even though I had an ND filter, it wasn't going to be able to give me that much um, detail in the background. What I like to do is just shoot everything in a flat profile and then come on to Premiere Pro. And it really is easy to do, but also it benefits you in the long run because then all your footage pretty much ends up looking the same. And then any little tweaks you need to do are a lot easier because in S-Log, it's retaining all that data and all that information. So you're able to manipulate and change things a lot better and a lot more detailed than you are than if you're just kind of filming regular on your camera in, the standard profiles that it has. So if we look at something like this, what I'll do is come over here to the creative tab, click on my table right here, go to browse, and then I created my own little Ariel Austin branding folder, and that's where I keep all my LUTs, music, sound effects, anything that I need. So as you can see, it already popped up, but it's going to be under the Sony Look Profiles S-Log 3, S-Gamut 3 Cine. So what I'll do is, to me, the first one is my favorite because to me, it's the way that it looks on camera the best. So I just double click that and bam, bam. It's like Emerald Lagasse, bam. Just straight from just doing that. I'm able to get these beautiful, beautiful colors that I'm able to now manipulate in a much better way. So if I wanted to bring the contrast up, now I could actually mess with the highlights in a way that's gonna give me much more detail on the back. I can mess with the shadows in such a way that it's not gonna mess too much with everything that's going on. Same thing with the whites, you know what I mean? So if you look at this one, compared to maybe this right here, look at that. This image is so much better. If I know that I'm nailing my specs in camera, then when it comes to color grading and post, it's gonna be so easy. And so then the other things I like to do, is create an S curve. And so creating the S curve for me just allows me to get a little bit more depth to it. Again, you want to get some of that cinematic moodiness. So the shadows, on the face, the tones, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you are utilizing all the information that you are given to you on these cameras because you're able to do so much from it. And I feel like when it comes to people who want to create content in a quick manner, or if you're trying to create content that is high quality for your clients or even for yourself, learning how to color grade is such a key thing because it's going to help when people are just scrolling through. It makes you stand out when you kind of create your own style, your own look, your own, transitions, whatever it is. And so something like this, learning how to one shoot in a flat profile will allow you to take that same skill and apply it to maybe larger video productions, like something you may do for your client. So this is a really good thing to learn to do for your own content as you're starting out, because then again, your focus is quality. Your focus is creating content in a visual way that others cannot do. And by doing that is creating your own signature style. And the way that you want to do that is by making sure that you're able to manipulate the information that's given to you from this S log. See, and like I said, just being able to, again, we could bump up the saturation here. Just the attention to detail that you can get filming on S-Log is phenomenal. Like I said, to me, this is also one of the reasons why cameras like the Sony 874, Sony A7C, and all these other cameras that Sony has created are still great to use because they shoot in this flat profile. So even though they're a few years older, you're still able to color grade it with so much of your other footage if you have these newer cameras or using different types of cameras. Like I'll film in a flat profile on my drone, on my cameras, on my 360 camera, on my Insta 360 Go 3S, because at the end of the day, all I need is a conversion LUT to be able to get it to the color that I need to, and then I just need to match all these colors together. And when you, again, once you start doing this more and more, you're able to get really fast at this process. And so one compliment that I get often from people is if I'm filming certain events or certain things that are going on, and my turnaround time is pretty quick depending on, if I have other work that I need to do. But so many people are blown away, right? By like, how do you make your content look so good so fast? And I always tell them like it's pretty easy when one, you have the idea beforehand of what you want the thing to look like, but two, you understand how to work your specs on your cameras because then you can merge all these things together, make it look really good because you know how to use the data that's given to you by all this gear that you're now purchasing. And so for me, I try every now and then to film in like the regular, standard profile that it has because I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be better when it comes to editing and make me faster. But then I feel like I take longer trying to match the colors or the highlights or the shadows when I know if I filmed it on a flat profile, it would have been much, much easier. So I kind of even on like some client work or even personal stuff that I don't need to do it, I know at the end of the day it's gonna make my process faster. So that is why I do it. And like I said, you could also throw in another LUT on here, so then if you wanna add, like, an adjustment layer, there's some other Sony LUTs on their website that are free, from, like, other, videographers, photographers that you can use. So then I'll just go on here, same thing, so I created this adjustment layer, so anything that I do on here, it's gonna affect the video, so then I'll come to Creative, Browse, and then I'll go back to, um, my folder where I have all my LUTs. Let's try this one. Then we can click on the creative look. Okay, so that gives you a very kind of like saturated look. What's this one? Same for that one. Whoa. And then what you can do is also move the intensity up or down, just depending on how much of the LUT you want to use. So literally, it just takes a click of a button. It takes, hey, let me just put this on here, drag, drop, boom. You add that conversion LUT, you're good. And like I said, you could throw on other LUTs. If another thing I like to do is go on CapCut, use CapCut because it has a lot of good filters on it as well. Use one of those. Now, I honestly believe anybody who wants to pursue a career in videography, cinematography should be learning how to shoot in S-Log because it's going to take you a long way. And like I said, it's also going to help you develop your own style and your own look. Once you create your style, your voice, and your look, it only takes a while for people to discover who you are and want to work with you. Now, I hope this video made shooting an S-Log a little less intimidating, but if it didn't, make sure to use that comment section to ask your questions. If you want to check out some of my other tutorials, make sure to click this video up here. And if you want to check out some of my vlogs and other things that I like to do, click this video right up here. Until next time, catch you on the flip side. Peace out.